just might be a call to action. I'm serious, my fellow concerned citizens. Somebody has to do something, or freedom's going to become a delicate concept. What we talked about last week about the police being the elite's bitch, it's probably most prevalent at the local level. I have no doubt one will find many instances of how police, the rich, the powerful, and the well-connected make themselves more equal than the rest of us.
www.rainbowpush.org and connect with us at 773-FREEDOM. Today we're focused on an issue, stopping frisk. You'll hear more about this at the conference or something I might add. This issue of race profiling is so pervasive. It's police, it's banks, it's SNLs, it's insurance companies, it's judges, it's real estate. It's a company called racism, and its impact is devastating. Again, Attorney Warren, what I found to be just kind of mind-boggling, I thought there would be an attempt in the court by Bloomberg's lawyers to say it's not true. They say it is true. They say, but it's necessary.
Yeah, here's what they've been saying. The Bloomberg administration has been saying, and the police department have been saying a couple of things. Number one, we don't profile people. What we do is we call it hotspot policing. So we go to the communities where all of the crime is, where the little old ladies say you got to get these guys off the street, and that's where we focus our efforts. And because in these neighborhoods, such a large percentage of the crime victims report that the perpetrator is African American, Latino, that's why we stop them. So it is neither racist nor is it indiscriminate and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what. So they say, yeah, we do it, but we call it a different thing. And what we've seen in the trial this week is, by looking at the testimony of the police officers and the victims, that the police officers and the victims are actually saying the same thing, and what they're saying is different from the police department. And so the police officers are saying we have pressure to stop young black men on the corner. One officer said, the police sergeant would ride with us in the car, and we thought that we were making too few stops, and point people out on the street. See that guy right there? Go stop him. Go frisk him. Literally for no criminal activity whatsoever. That is unconstitutional. So they're not denying that they're doing it. What they're doing is they're trying to shift, what I think they're trying to do is to shift the New York consciousness away from the legality, from the constitutionality, and from the effect on the community by using this concept of safety. And every time that they talk about, the New York crime figures have gone down and murders are down, and it's because of stop and frisk, when in reality there is no study anywhere in the world that will correlate between stop and frisk and a reduction in crime.
When you get through, what relief or remedy does the Center for Constitutional Rights, what many call it the trial of the century? It puts stop and frisk and more broadly the New York Police Department on trial. Since Mayor Bloomberg assumed office, this practice has increased by more than 600%. In 2011, there were more than 685,000 stop and frisk. 6% led to summonses, 6% led to arrests, 88% led to nothing at all. Race is an issue here. 9% of those stopped were white, 33% Latino, 51% African American. We're talking with Attorney Bess Warren, Attorney Barbara Wine, Law Committee for Civil Rights and Law, and noted Detroit Attorney Linda Bernard. Number 3, Frank from Niagara Falls, New York. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Reverend. Honestly, I have this theory concerning how poor areas of the U.S. are being targeted to see how much racism, collusion, seizure, graft, bribery, and abuse of power, federal, state, and local governments, their law enforcement agents, and contract vendors can get away with. Yeah, I'm here helping a good friend in Niagara Falls, New York, and I can't believe how bad things really are. either incompetence or corruption, there are no other explanations for the miserable condition of this city, set next to one of the 8 natural wonders of the world. The people here need inspiration, Reverend Jackson, the kind you can provide. I was in Southern California when you spoke at the Claremont Colleges for the family of Irving Landrum Jr., and I remember how you gave purpose to tens of thousands of young people when you got the crowd to chant those immortal words, I am somebody.
Frank, you got it going early this morning, man. Well, that sense of, I want to go back to Brother Taylor's point, because the president has this goal of more college graduates. There's a problem that's producing less college graduates. So there's something not jiving here. Taylor, do you think that a lawsuit would have to be filed, and if so, what would the lawsuit declare? There's a pervasiveness here, Bob, but there's an undercurrent. On one hand, you have an African-American president who represents the highest and best in us, but the backlash, Bob, is awesome.
Well, I think it's outrageous. I mean, if you look at it, New York City, because of stop and frisk, had the highest per capita arrest rate for marijuana, simple possession, of any locale in the entire United States.
Say that one more time.
New York City has the highest per capita arrest rate for marijuana possession, simple possession, of any locale nationwide. But what's really ugly about this is that in the city of New York, they were spending, in order to enforce the stop and frisk policy, over $75 million a year just on stop and frisk.
Lines are lining up. I want you listening, if you've experienced this where you live in this profiling business, or what they call in New York is kind of search and seizure, really. But call me at 1-866-594, 1-866-594-4673. If you're experiencing where you live this issue of stop and frisk, call right now. Let's talk about it, and let's get the word out. In the meantime, the Rainbow Push National Conference will be in Chicago, July 6th through 10. People like Rich Trump of AFL-CIO will be there, Attorney Bob Runwine and Lester Baskerville and Vince Warren and
Thank you so
Frank
much.
from Niagara Falls, New York. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Reverend. This is happening from coast to coast. I've been from New York to California, and police have lost their original way of protecting and serving. Here in Niagara Falls, we have an out-of-control police force already sanctioned by a consent order by the state attorney general's office for the outrageous number of stops and brutality and abuse of power incidences. They actually hate it when poor people question their authority. Now the NAACP has already filed suit here. In general, I think it's a very bad idea for a poor county or city to turn law enforcement into an income-generating scheme and average citizens into a commodity being exploited.
Frank, the reason I raised this about money, I was up in Freeport, Illinois, not very long ago, and the city must have maybe 5 or 6% African American. We sat there waiting for our trial to come up because we've been protesting the closing of a plant taking the job to China. And the place must have been like 90% African American. And they just come in and they plead and they pay the city and they're going to next door. It's like a running lottery machine, just collecting money on stopping and frisking. And people paying the way rather than protesting, people are paying.
Well, that's the whole...
I'm convinced that the judge and whole police, judicial department is paid for by unnecessary and unlawful stops.
Well, that's one thing I want everybody to be aware of. Is that I was reading the other day that the ACLU has started a nationwide project where they are trying to document the over-militarization of police departments and looking at all of these practices, especially the racial profiling. And I would encourage people, if you're listening right now, you need to be calling.
JP's his privately sound the name with a sense of shame and guilt. This is a collective crisis. It's quite pervasive. Before the 54 decision, the 54 case was from Kansas put on. There are many other cases. They chose that one case. All these cases are everywhere lend the matter.
Absolutely, what you say is absolutely true. And what I'm really wondering about, Vince, is whether the order that you're seeking will be broad enough to go back really to Fourth Amendment standards regarding illegal search and seizure, and what kind of impact we can use your order for, assuming that we're successful in the rest of the country, or does it need to go to the Supreme Court?
Oh, that's a great question. If I could just answer that. We're going to get lawyer technical for a quick minute.
Yeah.
What we want the judge to get caught up in is what does justice look like, and how do we work together to change this policy for everybody so that all of the kids and the younger folks moving forward will not have to be a part of this policy.
You know, Barbara, part of the issue in Chicago is that a number of these violations result in huge costs for the city. And there's a price attached to violating people in this way.
Well, $75 million a year. Think about that. And they've been doing this for 5 years, at least. And this is just outrageous. I mean, you think about what could have been done with $75 million. It has a complete correlation to the discussion we're going to have in the next hour about school closings. Remember, New York has also been one of these school closing cities. So we need to, think about all of this, about what the cost is to society and to people's lives, their future, employment, their future, peace of mind, what it does. The other thing I wanted to mention is the census data shows that New York during this period lost huge populations of African Americans and Latinos. What do we think happened? People got harassed, they got uncomfortable. Some of the stops, I think, Vince, in your case, people were arrested more than once. I'm sorry, when I say arrested, I should say stopped more than once. And that they, people just got tired of it. They got tired of living under this kind of constant police harassment, which is, I think, part of the strategy.
Friends, call me at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. But I want to ask you, what kind of remedy are you seeking in Detroit? And after the background check for an hour, it determined he was my son. And so you can go. He said, no, you've humiliated me. Charge me with something now. Charge me. Stop me, not charge you. You humiliated me, not charge me. And so the idea of quotas and stereotypes, they want quotas for jobs and education, the quotas for stopping free. Senator Bernard, what's it like in Detroit?
Well, it's the same here in Detroit. Reverend Jackson, the Constitution is obviously suspended, and the community, particularly the African American community, is terrorized by these actions.
Yeah, whites too now.
So is that it? As you've probably discovered in New York,
Latinos, whites, Native Americans, Asians.
White officers just addressing this or doing this to African Americans and others. I mean, the African American officers do it as well as the Hispanic officers, and the female officers have become quite aggressive in this regard. As a matter of fact, I stopped my car the other day on Jefferson when I saw they had pulled over a young African American male to just observe, and I got out the car, and the officer said to me, "Well, what are you looking at?" I said, I'm watching you because you have no right to search his car like this. You have no right on a regular traffic stop to certainly put him in handcuffs while you do this. I mean, this was just a regular traffic stop.
And other folks. So
Let me ask you a question, because Mayor Bloomberg is in a lot of play on sugar and soda pops and cigarettes and guns. Why are you laughing? What is he saying about this? This is happening in New York City on his watch. Sugar, soda pops, guns, and cigarette smoke.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of play on that stuff. Interesting thing, Reverend Jackson, I was on the Melissa Harris Perry show yesterday, and they actually opened up with a picture and a quote from you when you were at that rally. And so this is at MSNBC Studios, which shares with NBC Studios in 30 Rockefeller Plaza. So as we're being done with the show, we realized that Mayor Bloomberg, and we were talking about Mayor Bloomberg on that show, he was coming out past our studios to go into another studio to talk to Brian Williams. So I think that man was stuck in the green room watching Giuliani Williams, city councilman, one of our witnesses, and a reporter talk about how terrible his stop and frisk policy is, and I think he was kind of stuck watching that because he did not look happy when he was walking into the Brian Williams interview. But that, that's.
Well, are you driving with your license? You could be stopped, today.
Yeah, I was thinking about that same thing.
So forth. Be right back in just a moment.
$2 million from this union as part of his re-election, and who's received almost $1.5 million more since then. They have a budget of $5 billion in the Department of Corrections, and he's only proposing cutting $13.5 million. Compare that to the University of California that has a smaller budget, $4.5 billion, but he's proposing taking $75 million from them. 5 times as much. I guess if you dangle the shiny objects, the legislators will come. And
good things are going to happen. It's not just some rhetoric.
This one's probably the best example of how I'm right. I'm right, and I'm right, and I'm right again.
Ken, that I am in the process of moving to Los Angeles because I am going to be the brand new late evening host here on KFI starting January the 12th. The show will be from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. And in my television and radio career, I have lived in a lot of different places. Been fired a lot of times, so I got to move a lot. But I've only lived in cities east of the Mississippi. So this is going to be a major move for me. I'm moving from Louisville, Kentucky to Los Angeles, California. Louisville, which is the city in which I first learned to shoot a gun. Los Angeles, apparently the city where I'll first live, where I may need to actually use it. Conversely, Los Angeles appears to me to be the smallest, gigantic city in the world where there really is no one Los Angeles. It's basically like 500 different small communities combined into something that has almost nothing in common. That's my initial perception, at least having visited Los Angeles on numerous occasions. But I'm asking for you to give me some advice. Tell me what I need to know about Los Angeles as I move from what could not be a more dramatic move, both geographically and culturally, from Louisville, Kentucky to Los Angeles, and certainly downtown. Not too many people actually live there. But when I say Los Angeles, I say L.A., I mean the whole big deal. Let's go to Frank in Riverside. You're on the John and Ken Show with John Ziegler.
Yeah, I can only tell you about my own experiences since I moved here from Western New York. Police and law enforcement in California has a mandate to generate income for itself and state and local governments. Geez, I got a parking ticket in front of my brother-in-law's house the first night I was here, and it's been downhill ever since.
Well, my understanding is it's awfully hard to speed on the freeway because there's so much traffic, so they got to do something to generate income, right? I mean, they can't get you for speeding.
Well, they'll get you on the side streets. There's a lot of speed traps set up all over the place.
So beware of the fuzz, basically, is what you're telling me.
Oh, fines, penalties, seizures, code enforcement, the whole ball of wax.
Okay, well, maybe I'll talk nice about the police when I'm on the air and that'll help me out. Hey, thanks for the call, Frank.
Oh, yeah? John, you're going to talk good about the police, huh? Well, let's see. About a half a year later, I talked to you again, didn't I? I'm not even going to say I told you so.
Safety was not the intent of what this steroid boy, highway patrolman, was doing. It had nothing to do with safety. It was simply about generating revenue. And also, I think, letting him get his rocks off. When you use steroids a lot, your testicles tend to shrink. So steroid boy needed to get his rocks off, and there's no question he got a huge ego drive out of this. No doubt about it. You can tell immediately this guy loved what he was doing. And just the way he pulled me over, whistling at me, and then pointing at me and directing me over. This after I waved hi to him, which is how the whole thing started. I don't even know if he would have noticed I wasn't wearing a seatbelt if I hadn't waved at him. So that's my first problem. The other problem I have here is the reaction we seem to be getting here is almost universally, John, you're wrong on this. Because we seem to be so brainwashed now into believing that this is well within the rights of the government to do. That's the scary part. We have so lost sight of what the proper boundaries for for our government ought to be. That is not the role that our law enforcement ought to be playing, is badgering, going out of their way to badger and fine law-abiding citizens. Well, it's not as if we've eliminated all law-breaking in Los Angeles or in California, and we can now narrow it down to just people wearing seatbelts. If we had eliminated all other lawlessness, I could see, all right, let's crack down on seatbelt use. But can anybody rationally tell me that this is the biggest problem or even one of the top 100 crime problems facing California? No. It's all about revenue. It's all about ego. It's all about government control. And, of course, he's got the ticket all made out. And there is, at this point, smoke. You could actually see in my rearview mirror the smoke coming out of my ears. My blood pressure was off the charts. And I go into my standard cop speech whenever cops do something stupid like this. Usually it's for speeding. You know, I've never been pulled over in my life for not wearing a seatbelt. So I say to the California Highway Patrolman, sir, is this why you became a police officer? Is justice really being done when I, a tax-paying exemplary citizen, gets badgered and punished by the government while drug dealers and thugs and illegal aliens are walking around everywhere unmolested? Why don't you, sir, go to Dunkin' Donuts and think about why you became a police officer? And, of course, he's taken aback a little bit at this point, just wants me to sign the damn thing. I then said to him, sir, do you ever listen to the radio? And he said, yes. I said, well, I want you to listen to KFI AM 640 tonight at 10 o'clock, because I am going to skewer what you are doing here on the air tonight. And he says to me, well, would you like to know that your ugliness is all over a $20 fine? And I said, I don't care if it's over 20 cents. This is wrong. He then said, I'll have you know, this entire discussion is on tape. I said, good. Can I get a copy of it? I'd like to play it on the air because I want people to know exactly what I said to you during my standard cop speech. He didn't respond to that. I told him to feel free to call in tonight, but I seriously doubt that this jerk will have the guts to do so. The fact that we seem to be so willing to allow the government to invade every aspect of our lives and punish us when we created no danger to anybody else but ourselves. That ought to scare people, or at least give people pause, and I'm not sure it's actually happening, at least based upon the reaction we're getting on the phones.
Father Lincoln says, if you want to change a bad law, enforce it strictly, and I hope that's what happens.
Interesting point. Thanks for the call, Jim. Let's go to Frank in Riverside. You're on KFI with John Ziegler.
You know, first of all, I want to say I'm not anti-police. I'm anti-abuse of power.
Right.
I think it was one of your first shows. You wanted people to call in and tell you things you should know about living in California.
Yeah.
Well, I warned you about that police in California.
I remember this.
They have a mandate to generate income for themselves and state and local governments.
Yeah, that's what bothers me most about this, is that this was purely a revenue generator under the guise of the government looking out for your safety, which is just bullcrap.
Yeah, the moment you told that guy you were on the radio, I bet he phoned in and got all the union and association members to stack the calls tonight.
I have no idea, but if he did, he did a pretty good job. Thanks for the call, Frank, and I appreciate the warning. I wish he did it a little bit better. Add insult to injury, just so you know, just so you don't think this had anything to do with me in particular. I went, hit golf balls, came back. The same police officer was still pulling people over, I'm presuming, for the same thing an hour later. So this was I've heard of speed traps. I have never heard of seatbelt traps. That's essentially what this guy was doing. He was sitting in the middle of the road in a position where he could see people stopped at a stop sign and tell whether or not they had their seatbelts on. Dimwits like me waving at him, smiling, going, hey, officer, having a good day? And then he pulls me over, fines me. So he might as well just been going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Say that it's a dirty shame the way protesters are being treated in the modern day. And, you know, we're not all a bunch of wackos. You know, some of us have legitimate cases to be made. And I just want to say that even before 9/11, I was one of the people that helped organize the movement against government and police abuse of power here in Southern California. And once we started attracting thousands at our weekly rallies, we had every rally, there was over 16, 17 police agencies, law enforcement agencies on the scene, just perfecting their control by authority. And I mean, they took us all out. They used every kind of technique to turn public opinion against us.
Frank, do you find that it is protest against people in power that caused the trouble, or just protests in general? Because it was very interesting in Boston, and I'm sure you followed it closely, the photographs of those people behind those walls and those barbed wires protesting the convention was stunning. I ran the headline, America ? Because I don't ever recall protesters being put tucked away like that and little bins like that. To me, that was a disgusting display done by Boston against their own, Democrat-leaning convention.
Well, you know, all these politicos, they have their agendas, and they hate when the people get any kind of power. And I'm just telling you, once we started attracting too many people to our rallies, then the term routine traffic stop took on a whole new meaning.
Near, and you couldn't be threatening, and you couldn't stare, and you couldn't raise your voices, and they've just now expanded that, and using Al-Qaeda and all the rest to say now protesting is a terrorist threat within itself.
Yes, well, I'm giving notice right now that the activists are moving out of the 60s type protest, and we're going into the civilian oversight movement. We're going to follow police, we're going to follow politicians, we're going to videotape, we're going to make cases against them, and if anybody thinks they can take our rights away from us, they got a big surprise coming, Matt.
All right, thank you, Frank. I got to make sure my tax returns are in order after that call. He's angry. He's going to start following those politicians who are saying he can't be protesting anymore. Well, you can protest, sir. I mean, we don't have to be too dramatic here, but you just have to go behind the barbed wire and behind the fence. Place where it was like last week at this time when Kerry was saying, everything's fine in Boston. Yeah, he said the limousine goes straight through. The private jet gets straight, complete access. Most of the time, anyway. So, yeah, he didn't know what the little people were going through. Now, that's a little too radical. He's going to start following people, and that's a little much. We already got a call from the Secret Service. They're already in on it. We said some code words being run to crunch through echelon. What would I do to just have the drudge as a code word up there in echelon? How much do I pay? There's the billboard in the skies. They've already, they look at the Sunset Strip. They're painting the billboards all the way up, almost to the clouds.
Well, that's it for tonight.
Here's the real issue here. What the guy did was a no-no. I mean, it's a cop taking advantage of his position as a cop, and it was completely illegal. But in terms of your damages, the trick is you want to get back to this guy. Now you can cause him a lot of problems. What you want to do is put a formal complaint. He can get fired for this one, by the way. He could lose his job.
Well,
that's the kind of grief you want. Which is great, because then he comes out, finds out you did it, takes his gun at home, and he puts a hole through your head big enough to put a watermelon through, which is fine. If you're prepared to do that, that's fine. But
that's a whole other show.
It is a whole other show.
países latinoamericanos.